You are listening to Waffle, the bite-sized podcast with Paul Jenkins. First broadcast on Rossendale Radio on the 6th of September 2020. This week, Paul talks to Chair of the Rossendale Players, David West. He talks about how the company went from being a small ensemble to owning its own theatre, the uncertain future of local theatre, and how putting on production really is a team effort.
104.7 Rossendale Radio.
It's Paul Jenkins here on 104.7 Rossendale Radio. I am back in the studio. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome my guest this afternoon. You obviously heard just a second ago, I thought I'd big things up a little bit because everyone loves a show and everyone's missing a show at the moment. And what they're missing is they're missing that live performance. And the person I've got on the line is an absolute expert in that area. David West, can you hear me?
I can, Paul. Thank you.
It is always nice when I start ask that question and somebody does respond. It's always lovely. I'm fearful of the technology. David, do you want to tell us who you are and who you represent in this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm the chair of the Rossendale Players. The group has been in existence, believe it or not, since back end of 1936. And,
recent thing then.
Yeah, quite recent, and has been performing in the valley since then, even through the war years. So an awful lot of productions in that time. We started off in Waterfoot in 1936 and then moved to Cloughfold and then a bit of a nomadic experience. And then in 1994 we were able to buy the old Bethel Baptist Lecture Hall in Waterfoot.
That's amazing. And it sounds as if up until that point that you almost like a band of travelling players.
It had become like that, yes, from 1964. And then after a lot more hard work and fundraising, the new Millennium Theatre opened in September 2000.
So that was, again, it must have been quite a process to go through the fundraising and the planning of the new theatre and all the rest of it.
Before my time, but the people that did it did a wonderful job, and the theatre is a very intimate and a very nice place to come. We have a bar just as you come in the door, a bar run by our vice chairman David Rhodes, and then the theatre seats round about 86 on two levels. We've got the ground, the stalls. And then we've got a small balcony which seats about 20.
It sounds as if, I've got to say, it's not like, because we think of theatres sometimes. I think everyone's got this kind of stereotypical version of what the theatre is. It's like the Palace in Manchester or something like that, where you've got this kind of like opulent, giant, arena that you're going to come into, and it's very impersonal, and it's great, if you're doing some large-scale musical or something. But actually, what you've got there at the theatre is a much more, as you say, I think the nice word is intimate. Does it feel more personal when you hear performances?
Yeah, it is intimate. I mean, I've acted in larger theatres, and it is lovely to be there because you get the immediate reaction from the audience at any time. The awful thing is when you can actually see them, but so long as Tony has the lighting right, that's very hard to do. To see anybody just looking at you, but no, it's good, and we get the audience, the reaction, the laughter, the gasps of surprise, fear, amazement, depending on what the play is. We recently did Death Trap by R11, and that required a crossbow being shot. And,
oh my goodness!
And gunfire, and it really does. Get to the audience. They see a crossbow fired across the stage. And it was my job to catch the bolt. I was stage manager.
I was going to say, so you're in charge of the risk assessment for that one, then?
No, the producer was.
Oh, right. Yeah, delegate that one. That one's.
Yeah, we had to have the weapons. The stage manager for that was actually my wife. But we had to have all the weapons. That play has a myriad of weapons axes and crossbows, guns and everything, and it all have to be locked up every night. It's quite a job when you've got something like that, even if they're not real. The crossbow was real, but
yeah, I was going to say. I mean, it's the behind the scenes stuff that's really to get a production up and running. I think some people think that it's a bunch of actors turn up in a bar, they learn some lines, and then off they go. But it's much bigger than that. And the Rossendale Players is it's interesting. You saying, you certain friends were doing this, and your wife was involved in that. Does it feel like like an almost extended family, the Rossendale Players?
It does. It's not everybody is in every play, but people get involved all over the place. And I mean, we're talking about the costume people, the lighting and sound team, which are run excellently, and then there's the people that do the props, people on the front of house, the bar. It is on the night that is everybody there, and before that, of course, the people that aren't seen but who are indispensable are the set builders, and we've had a very good team of set builders that would go in on a Monday morning and Wednesday mornings and work on the set, and we've had some absolutely excellent sets over the years because of them. One of them's just retired, so if anybody's looking out there for something to do, we love to welcome you, even if it's only with a paintbrush. I mean, I learnt my DIY skills on drama sets, and well, they're not brilliant.
Well, I tell you what we'll do, Dave. We're going to share a little bit of that in a second, and I'll tell you what, I can fill you in on some very dodgy sets that I've put up with tape in my past. But we're going to go to a very quick music break, if that's all right. Now you've chosen the playlist for us this afternoon, which is wonderful. And do you want to
help the listeners enjoy it?
Yes, well, there you go. I think it's really lovely actually, because we get a complete range of different styles of artists and people involved in the arts here on this particular section of the show. And do you want to tell us, because you've gone for Africa by Toto?
Yeah, I back in the late 80s, early 90s, I worked for an international bank, and I spent 5 years travelling backwards and forwards to Kenya, Seychelles and Mauritius. And whenever I was in Kenya, I would be flying down from Nairobi to Mombasa, which sounds very posh, doesn't it? And out of the right-hand side of the plane, you could always see Kilimanjaro.
Was it rising above the Serengeti?
Well, usually just sticking out of the clouds, actually, but yes. But and so Africa has always, the song by Toto has always had a meaning for me, because it reminds me of that 5 years, which were very, very, on the whole, very enjoyable. I mean, let's face it, if you have to go to the Seychelles on business,
life could be worse, couldn't it?
Yeah, life could be worse. So that's why I chose Africa.
Excellent. This is Toto.
Playing more of the songs you like. This is 104.7 Rossendale Radio.
It's Paul Jenkins here with the Weekend Wind Down, and I'm joined by my guest David West. Oh, there you go. I'm back on the poetry. David West is my guest. You've become part of the scene already. I can't help myself. I'm sorry. We've been chatting just before the break, before we were listening to Toto, about, you were telling us about your volunteer group. I don't suppose you know roughly how many people are involved in the Rossendale Players family.
Yeah, we have. Before lockdown, we had 80 members.
My goodness.
Not all would be involved in every production, but there would probably be about 3 in the lighting, a couple on the costumes, another couple on props, stage manager. So you can almost double up a cast with what is needed backstage and front of house, and to run the bar, to run the coffee room for the interval and everything. And everybody is a volunteer. Everybody, all the cast, all the directors are volunteers. So with amateur theatre, you can't run without volunteers, and it's a great thing to be involved in. It's the buzz on an opening night is absolutely fantastic, as long as it goes well.
It is. I remember them very clearly, those opening nights, because the dress rehearsal always goes terribly. And if you don't have a bad dress rehearsal, then you're not doing it properly. But there's that. You're saying a buzz in the air. There's an electricity around a theatre, backstage as well as out the front, on that opening night, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I think what you were saying is about having 2 or 3 people. Is it a case of that maybe there's a few people that are sort of old hands that have been there for a few years, and maybe you've got people that are showing them the ropes so that they can carry on with things after?
That's exactly, Paul, what it is. Yeah, I mean, Tony in the lighting booth, he's got Rosanna with him, who's been there for a while with him, and then we've got Dan, who's just joining us and learning the ropes as he goes along. It's great. And the same with costume. We had somebody that did it for a lot of years, and then moved away, and Sue came in and has picked it up, and Sue Engeldow and does the costumes, and I mean, that is a job. We did Journey's End the start of last season, the place set in the First World War trenches, and we had to get she had to get the uniforms all in for that, for a cast of about 12. That wasn't something she could costume herself, but we had to find them. But I mean, you say that the buzz, one of the worst things that happened was a week before the last play was due to go on in March, Be My Baby, and we had to talk to the cast on the Sunday when they were rehearsing to say, I'm sorry, but we can't go on, because we could see what was coming with coronavirus, and to have to tell a cast that had worked brilliantly for weeks that it wasn't going to happen was heartbreaking.
It was such a hard decision for anybody that was involved in live performance at the time. I remember I run a spoken word night in Ramsbottom, and we ummed and ahed about it for a very long time. And we had our guest poet who was coming over. He was going to do some brilliant work for us, and he said, as soon as you're back, I'm ready to go for you. But we'd got to the stage, it's the effort. It's not the night. It's the promotion and the posters and the things you're going to need, and the tech and all the other things. It was all in place, ready to go.
Exactly. That's where we were with Be My Baby, and the cast have been brilliant, and we don't know. We might start with that, but whether we've still got the availability of the cast, as some of them are going off to uni, and because they were a young cast, whether we will be able to go put that on again with the same cast is debatable, and it's very difficult. As you say, we're reliant on volunteers, and people have other lives. They're not always available. They make themselves available for a specific production, and then if something happens with either production or their lives, they drop out, or they can't alter it, and it's totally understandable. It's just unfortunate.
It is, and we're always saying here at Rossendale Radio, we're very lucky in that we've got a relatively large pool of volunteers, considering the number of shows that we run or things like that. And actually, with people come and go from our station, but actually, it's very much like the theatre. We find a way to carry on, and I suppose the lockdown has probably put extra stress on that volunteer base, hasn't it?
It has. Yeah.
Did you say? I think you mentioned. Sorry, that one of your members is almost waiting to retire, but can't yet. He's sort of hanging on until there's somebody to take over.
Peter directs as well, and he said he'd like to step down from set building, but he acknowledges that at the moment there's only 2 or 3 of them to do it. So until we can find somebody, he will continue. I've come into this. I was elected to the chair last October. Christine Durkin, who'd been wonderful as chairman for 10 years, and to step in, and then all of a sudden to have the theatre's closing, and you're thinking, what the did I do to deserve this? But there you go.
Well, I tell you what, then, what we'll do is looking forward to the future and about how we fix this, because we're going to fix it. We're going to fix live performance and everything else between us. You've picked another cracking track for us. You've gone for Neil Young, and it was a Neil Young track that we didn't have on the playlist. I had to go and search it out. Why 4 Strong Winds?
Four Strong Winds. I lived out in Canada for a couple of years back in the late 80s, and the songs, I lived in Calgary, and the song starts, think I'll go out to Alberta, weather's good there in the fall. And the song is a song about the end of a relationship, but to me, all the references are to Alberta and the weather out there, and it just reminds me of a time when I lived there. That's why I selected Four Strong Winds by Neil Young.
It's the perfect introduction to your time in Canada. Here's Four Strong Winds.
The frequency.
104.7.
The area.
Rossendale Valley.
The station.
Rossendale Radio.
It's Paul Jenkins here on the Weekend Wind Down, and it's our Waffle segment, and I'm here with my guest David West, and he has been talking to us about the Rossendale Players, about all of the challenges that we've got at the moment. But we said just before the break there that we were going to fix things. We're going to fix theatre and live performance for everybody, and you've got plans afoot, haven't you, for getting back, about some sort of version of reality that we're going to come back to. What's in the future for the Rossendale Players?
Well, we have 4 plays already cast, 2 from last season, which didn't get on, as I've mentioned, Be My Baby, which got cancelled 10 days beforehand, and another one called We'll Always Have Paris, which is a very light-hearted comedy. Mm-hmm. We should have been starting this season with Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, which is quite a meaty play to get round, set in the 30s in California, on a farm, written by Steinbeck from his book. And then another play we had was one called My Mother Said I Never Should by somebody called Charlotte Keatley, who was Dawn, who was our secretary that's just stood down, was going to make a directorial debut in that. So those are the 4 plays we've got cast. So we're going to work round seeing how we can rearrange the theatre. We have production meetings regularly. We've got one coming up on how we can space it out so that if we can get audiences in of 20 or 30 out of the 86 that we can seat, we can go ahead and put on a play. I mean, although it's always nice to make money, we can afford to perhaps not make money on a couple and just get back in front of people. It'll be great to be able to show people what we're doing. We've been doing odd jobs on the theatre, and we've been outside working, and people have stopped us in the street and said, "Oh, when are you coming back? We can't wait to come back into the theatre." I mean, whatever you see on Zoom, whatever you see on Facebook or YouTube, it's not the same as sitting in a theatre.
I said the same to somebody just earlier. I think that first month of lockdown, for a moment we were going, "Oh, isn't this interesting? I can see what Davina McCall's living room looks like." And then at the end of it, it's like, "Yeah, okay, I'm tired of seeing your kitchen now, Jonathan Ross. Can we please move on?" And we want that connection back, don't we? I think everyone's just longing for that moment of sharing a live experience together.
Yeah, we were even hoping to have our committee meetings this week in the theatre, but we've decided, as Rossendale has experienced a bit of a spike, that we'll wait at least this month. But then we've got other meetings to arrange, and it would just be good to be back with our friends. All our friends in the group.
Did you say that the early rehearsals have been Zoom based as well?
We've been rehearsing Of Mice and Men on a Sunday night on Zoom, which was very funny last week when one of the guys had actually gone away camping and was doing it from his car. Nice. And the light was fading, and all of a sudden all we could hear was a voice and see, because it had got dark. I was quite impressive that, as he was trying to read his script in the dark. I
bet he ran his battery down as well, just to get an internal light.
Yeah, that's what he was worried about. But yes, so we've been rehearsing, so we've been seeing each other on that and getting to grips with the lines. I play an old guy who's lost his hand, and which is Candy, which is It's a smaller part, but interesting. But it is a very good play for anybody that knows the book or the play. It is a good play. But as I say, we also have the other plays which we come in round that are cast, which will always have Paris and Be My Baby and My Mother Said I Never Should, which is a number of women talking from various ages.
I know it well. I studied it for A-level. It was, I remember going to see productions of it and writing very long and very analytical essays about My Mother Said I Never Should.
The rest of the programme was going to be Agnes of God, which Mark Staunton was going to direct, which is a very quite a serious play set in a convent. And then I was going to direct Separate Tables, which would have been the first time I directed at Rossendale. And then we were going to finish the season with Lord Arthur Savile's Crime, which Peter was going to direct. Peter Smith was going to direct. We will decide tomorrow exactly where we are hoping to be and when we're hoping to put various productions on. Some may have to go into the 2021-22 season. But I think, we will get back. We must get back. Theatre must get back. And it is getting back in a small way. But one of our main responsibilities is, of course, is to our cast, our members and our audience. And we can't do it if we're going to put them at risk. Yeah,
absolutely. And then this, there was that big thing that went round when the lockdown first started. It was like when Shakespeare went into lockdown, he went and wrote King Lear, which has actually been historically debunked, I think, about the timing of it. But I think the point is that, theatre has suffered these things before. There were theatres dark during the war. There were theatres dark during the plague. There were theatres dark for various reasons in history. Yeah. But they came back because people want to have that experience of seeing a show or seeing a comedian or seeing a writer or whatever it is they're going to watch. And you will be back stronger than ever, I'm almost certain. And that will be, and whether that happens in 2020 or 2021 or even further into the future, it will be a very vibrant thing, I'm almost certain. Yeah.
We had hoped to actually do something in the open air in this month, but for various reasons it hasn't been able to. We haven't been able to arrange it with with the council, getting the council and getting it. They were positive, but then things happened, and
I think locally we've like you said, we've had that second spike. I think it's been a little bit tricky to do those things that we were probably hoping to. Yeah,
we did hope to do something outdoors. But there again, the weather.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we are in Rossendale. You do remember that, right? Yeah. Right. So we're going to, sadly, we're going to have to call it a day, Dave. But what we are going to do is, as time goes on, I'd really love you to keep in touch with the show. This 5 till 6 hour, we always talk about the arts. And when we've got a few more details about how things are going with the particular, I'd love you to check in with us every now and again, and we can get a regular thing going.
That's wonderful, Paul. We'd love to do that and keep people advised of where we are and when we will be back and in front of them.
Well, indeed. And in your last music choice, I think you summed it up very nicely with because if we're coming to the end of things, we are homeward bound now. We're coming to the end of this thing, and you've chosen Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, my favourite artist of all time, I think, and there was so much choice, but this one, for various reasons, means a lot to me, and I just had to pick. I couldn't not pick a Simon and Garfunkel whenever I decided this one is the one I'd pick.
You don't always need a story, you just sometimes like a track because it's great.
Yeah, that's it.
Here's Homeward Bound. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
104.7 Rossendale Radio.
And so Waffle, the Bite-Sized Podcast, comes to an end for another week. It was an absolute pleasure to speak to David West from the Rossendale Players about all of their upcoming productions that they've got, and also about how they're really dealing with the COVID situation and how we're going to get back to being out there and seeing live theatre. And it's great to hear about what a real family it is, and how they've managed to bring that volunteer group together. I think just like at Rossendale Radio, it's really great to hear that there's a really good, strong team of volunteers doing their best just to bring you entertainment all the way through the days. We'll be keeping in touch with David and the team over at Rossendale Players in the coming weeks, so listen out for future episodes. My thanks, as ever, go to the team at Rossendale Radio for allowing us to broadcast on a Sunday afternoon, and of course to Melanie Kemp for all of her brilliant work editing Waffle, the Bite-Sized Podcast. I will see you very soon.